chance again. No, 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 not like you, not like you. I see you in another life. Again.
Say. All right. For those of you who don't know, my name is Alexis Potaman. I am a member of the board. I always like to kick off today, or the Sunday, with a couple of our core values that are particularly relevant. Today I want to highlight reality is known through reason, and meaning comes from making a difference. Today, as you can tell, we do not have a musician, but we still have a fantastic lineup for you. We have our community moment by Mike Nelson, and our main talk is with Marcy Antiuk and Wil Jeudy. I also want to remind everyone that today is Bring Your Own Lunch. So normally we go out to eat. Today we're doing it here. So we normally have some food here, but you're also welcome to order something, have it delivered here, go out and get it, come back. We do have a fridge and microwave, so if you're worried about that, you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, so with that, we're going to go ahead and get this day started with our community moment from Mike Nelson.
Hello. This is a repeat community moment, but I don't, so some of you might just bring up the same old things you brought up the last time, but I'm thinking we are not the intelligent species we think we are. I mean, if you think, hello?
Get behind the camera. Get behind the lectern, Mike.
Oh, you want me up here so you can point the camera at me. Okay, all right, I'll do it from here. Anyway, I'm thinking of things that are legal, illegal, ordinary, and detrimental. I'm going to hit some easy ones. Beverage alcohol. It's legal, it's ordinary, but it's detrimental. Think of anything else? Legal. Legal, things we do. Ordinary. And detrimental. Eating beyond our nutritional needs. That's a great pastime, I love it, but I have to deal with it, as do some of the rest of you.
I've heard someone say smoking.
Think about it. Think, you could, if you don't want to look introspectively into your own life, look at the lives of those around you, the things that they do that are legal, ordinary, but detrimental. I keep another high heel shoes. We don't see those much anymore, but in formal affairs we do. They're legal, they're ordinary, and they're certainly detrimental.
Social media.
What?
Social media.
Social media.
Social media?
Eating sweets. Eating candy, sugar.
Eating candy, Mike.
Hello?
He said eating candy.
Candy, yes. Pollution? Donuts, maybe, I don't know. See, sometimes this goes more enthusiastically than others.
It is daylight savings time. We're all still waking up.
Well, that's true.
Sitting around, couch potato.
Being a couch potato.
Couch potato, yes, it's one of my favorite pastimes. Do I have another one back there?
Workaholic.
Oh, yeah. Being a workaholic.
Okay, one more. Going once, going twice, 3 times sold. Thank you very much. See you next time.
I can take it. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mike. Yeah, I think we're all, I know at least for myself, I'm still waking up. I've only had 1 cup of coffee, I'm sorry. All right, so normally we would have had our musician done the communion moment. We would normally break for coffee and come back for the main talk, or start the main talk, then break for coffee before Q&A. So today, we are going to go ahead and jump right into our main talk. So I would like all of y'all to help me welcome up to the front Marcy Antiuk and Wil Jeudy.
Is it righty-tighty? That 1 hour, man. Whew. All right, check. Yeah. Check. Yeah, thank you for having us today. We want to put the slides on the screen. What the?
You know how to do it? Just mirror it. So your display set.
Oh, here we go.
You want to mirror it. If you want to show through.
How is it? Meh.
Yeah. And then you just shut it over.
Where? Oh,
Is this a PDF or? You're not
No,
able to
it's,
see it. If you don't mirror it, you're not going to be able to see it.
yeah, I did it before.
Window or app. Let's see if it'll let you just.
Here we go. All right. Much better. So we are here to give you an update on Christian nationalism, what it is, why it's bad, and kind of put it in the context of Texas. That's why it's called the Lone Star Edition. It's a lot of information, so I'm going to talk kind of fast because I want to protect a Q&A time, because I'm pretty certain it's going to be a robust Q&A, which is what we absolutely need to do. So I have organized this talk with me, an atheist, and a Christian, to give this talk, and which I think is vital. So, yeah, an atheist and a Christian walk into a bar. Sounds like a start of a joke, but it's actually the first meeting we had in preparation for this talk. And again, this coalition between believers, non-believers is going to be essential. It's going to be vital to any success that we have in the real world, and we'll explain why. So we are here to show you how that's going to look and how that's going to sound. So we are going to be up here teaching you what Christian nationalism is. We want you to be confident and empowered to push back on it whenever and wherever you see it. I've been learning about Christian nationalism for a bunch of years now. It's difficult to define in a bumper sticker. It's insidious, it's vague, it lurks in the shadows, so you kind of get the picture. But as nebulous as it is a real threat to our democracy in general and to religious freedom specifically. It is absolutely un-American, and let me tell you why. Amanda Tyler, she's doing amazing work with the Baptist Joint Committee, and I'm not a big believer of reading to y'all while the definition's up on the slide, but I think this is important because it is difficult to define. She defines it as Christian nationalism is a political ideology and cultural framework that merges American and Christian identities. It teaches that to be a true American, you must be a Christian in their version of Christianity, and that to be a real Christian, you must affirm certain political positions. But the Christian in Christian nationalism is more about identity than it is about religion. It seeks to create a society in which only this narrow subset of Americans is privileged in law and in societal practices. It carries with it assumptions about nativism, white supremacy, authoritarianism, patriarchy and militarism and even violence, as we've seen before. Christian nationalism uses the symbols and languages of Christianity to point to a political figure, a party, or ideology instead of pointing to Jesus. And that's her definition as a Baptist, as a believer. I've heard it stated that definitions can come in 1 word, in 10 words, or in 100 words. Honey, do you love me? That's a 1-word answer, usually. Christian nationalism was more like a 100-word definition, but I'm trying, y'all. I'm trying to get it down to a 10-word definition. It's hard. Dr. Andrew Whitehead, he's also done a lot of work in this realm. He's authored a couple books, done a lot of research and articles. His definition, he defines it as such. White Christian nationalism is a cultural framework that idealizes and advocates for a fusion of a particular expression of Christianity with American civic life. So it holds that this version of Christianity should be the principal and undisputed cultural framework in the United States, and that the government should vigorously preserve that cultural framework. Now, our founding fathers were flawed individuals. I don't agree with everything that they did. But I'll give them credit. They stuck to their guns and established this country, the government of this country as a secular one. That was the first of its kind, an American original. They only had to look back a short time, in the 1780s. They only had to look back a short time to know what happens when government and religion are merged. They wanted no part of that bloodbath. Here's a gentle reminder, this country was not founded as a Christian nation. By now, you might see a trend. Christian nationalism wants to merge government and religion, while people like us want to keep them separate. Now, this is an important point. The problem with Christian nationalism isn't with Christian participation in politics, but rather the belief that there should be Christian primacy in politics and in law and even in society. One person believing that Christians should be on top, in power, and ruling the land while oppressing all of the others, us, in and of itself isn't going to break this country. You can think and believe anything you want. It is a free country. But when you use the power of the state to actually enforce that belief, to impose it on people like us, well, that's why we're up here giving this talk. That is a grave threat to our democracy, and that is Christian nationalism at its most dangerous and hurtful. I have a couple of friends up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area doing wonderful work, the Tackett's, Mindy and Chris Tackett. Mindy describes it as such. What this translates to is a number of lawmakers who are injecting their personal religious interpretations into official public policy. It's okay for elected officials to draw from their spiritual life and find guidance so long as they are not using their religious belief to remove rights or freedoms or equality from others who may differ from them. We do not have a declared national religion. It is possible to be a devout Christian and still respect the separation of church and state. The late Jimmy Carter is a great example of this at the presidential level. He was as devout as they come, but on the record, more than once, he said that the separation of church and state must be respected and upheld. Said that many times. Now that we have kind of an idea of what it is, let me tell you about where and how I see it in the real world generally, and in Texas specifically. Real world examples of the implementation of this scourge. Now, what I see generally, again, it's insidious, lurks in the shadows. It's really hard to understand. So I've spent a bunch of time trying to define it for that reason. To be at its best, Christian nationalism needs to be implicit and vague. It is also very clear that they enjoy a mountain of money. Here in Texas, there are 2 billionaires, Tim Dunn and the Wilkes brothers, I consider that too, who have donated a boatload of money to candidates and elected officials alike. I liken it to smog on top of a huge pile of gold. And they do use that money often and efficiently. What's the big deal? Rich people donate to officials all the time. Well, these billionaires, Tim Dunn and the Wilkes brothers, are well-known Christian nationalists. One or both, I believe, are actually preachers in their own churches. and have preached often from the pulpit about bringing this country back to Jesus. Now, couple those sermons with huge donations, with what we see coming out of the Texas legislature, the case for Christian nationalism in Texas is an easy one. Christian nationalism gives unpopular issues a patina of respectability. Lipstick on a pig, as the saying goes. It makes otherwise good people feel okay with the pain that their decisions cause. So they don't push back. They don't change their minds. They don't dare question the will of God. And this is what Christian nationalism does. It equates God with governor, with president, with elected official, so that questioning one means you're questioning the other. And it intertwines the two. It merges the two, as I said earlier. And it's mind-boggling to people like us how they can do that. And my friend Marcy is going to explain why that is just not right. But we know that it just boggles my mind. So bills that encourage racism, misogyny, homophobia, oppressing minorities, violence toward already marginalized peoples, most or all are accepted because of this patina of religion. The thought of putting, someone may say, the thought of putting brown kids in cages kind of gives me heartburn. I don't like it. But if Jesus says it's okay, I won't argue, and that Jesus could be replaced by governor or with state representative. In other words, Christian nationalism is a very potent permission structure to allow this to happen. Now, when I see more specifically to the Texas legislature, the 2025 legislative session is going on right now. It happens every 2 years in this state. It's a frenetic, intense couple of months when the Texas House of Representatives and Texas senators get together in Austin, submit bills, and try to pass said bills. These bills affect us all. There are good bills and there are bad bills. We live in Texas, y'all. There's a lot of bad bills, at least bills we consider bad anyway. And in that list of bills coming down the pipe, there is a ton of Christian nationalism in them. In previous legislative sessions, we got to see In God We Trust, the first attempt at a 10 Commandments bill, abortion bans, the argument of life begins at conception, heartbeat bill, again, same argument, imposing patriarchy upon all Texans. We had the chaplain bill a couple years ago at the last session, allowing unlicensed chaplains with no oversight to mentor high school kids. During this legislative session, we get to see a mandatory time set aside for Bible study and prayer, financial incentives to accept religious curriculum changes, and the 10 Commandments are back, y'all, poised to be passed this time. There are other examples, but I want to shift my focus to the local school boards. They explicitly, and I'll explain who they is, they explicitly went after school boards on a grassroots level starting decades ago. Now, we see the fruit of their efforts both nationally and here at the local level. Bible-infused curriculum, such as the Blue Bonnet bill that we heard about late last year. Conversations to say we need to put prayer back in schools. Book bans, chaplains as counselors, as I mentioned earlier, transphobia, all elevated because of the infiltration of Christian nationalism, Christian nationalists, and Christian nationalism on school boards. Katy and Conroe are some of the more egregious examples with the real-world decisions to show for it. Again, Christian nationalism is a permission structure that makes all of this easier to attain for them. And the chaplain bill, I'll unpack it just a bit. I guess it's kind of easy to intellectualize it. If a middle school kid, a high school kid, is having gender dysphoria issues, cue the Christian chaplain to come to the rescue. And we all know what advice they will give to this child in distress. Now, there is some good news here. When they passed this specific bill, the chaplain bill, they left it to each individual school board in Texas to either accept or reject this bill. Now, most Texas school boards rejected it. This was last year. Again, this is why all elections are important and why it is important to be a voice of reason at all levels. I don't think I think more school boards would have passed this bill if there wasn't such opposition to them, and there was a lot of opposition. And that's kind of why we're here to inform you all why it's important. Now, why are they doing this? White Christian nationalism wants to rewrite our history and values. It is pushing forward a government that values fundamental Christianity above all other religions and a legal system that disfavors the non-religious, religious minorities, women, black and brown people, and the LGBTQ community. Democracy isn't working for them anymore. More brown folks are in the population. They don't have as much of the dominance and power position that they used to have, or at least they see their obsolescence coming. Democracy isn't working for them anymore. So they break it up, they smash it. They replace it with a theocracy or an authoritarian regime. In doing so, they get their hierarchy and their privileged high place on it. But how do you get regular Americans to be okay with ripping up the Constitution, with instituting a theocracy? The answer to that is Christian nationalism. And who is them? I keep saying them, they. Overwhelmingly, they are rich, white Christian men who want to stay on top, as they were promised. And also, frankly, those that want to get as high on this hierarchy as possible. Call it human nature, if you will, but they are in the mix. So why do I spend so much of my personal time fighting this? Why do I invest so much of myself in pushing back on Christian nationalism? Why do I have these bags under my eyes besides the 1 hour that we lost last night? I'll tell you something personal. I really love my daughters. I love my secular community. And I have a newfound love for the progressive Christians that I've worked with. Christian nationalism is responsible for so much oppression and danger and misery to those that I love and respect. To remove it from the equation, to expose it for what it is, means that so many things in society that I want to improve just might improve. My daughters might not have to move out of this state. You and the people that you love just might be able to be your authentic selves. So that's kind of a quick definition of Christian nationalism and what I see from my standpoint. I want to introduce my partner in crime, Marcy, up here to tell you what she sees through a different prism, which I'm really excited about.
Thank you, Will. Can you hear me? I know you may not be able to see me. I'm kind of short. I'm shorter. But let me see. Okay, there we go. Okay, so again, I'm Marcy Antiuk. I'm very grateful to be working with Will, and you allowing me to be in this space. I want to tell you a little bit about myself and share with you a little bit about me. You know, I'm uncomfortable as a Christian today in this environment, culture that we're living in. I don't wear my crosses anymore or any church-related religious decor, so to speak, because I don't want to be considered a Christian nationalist. You can't tell by looking at me who I am or what I'm about. I try to wear, affirming buttons once in a while, but it's difficult for me. And I'll have to admit, even when I see somebody wearing a cross in today's times, I think to myself, gosh, I wonder what type of Christian that is. Is that an inclusive Christian? Is it an evangelical, more right-wing, white Christian nationalist person? I can't tell either by looking at them. So how do I differentiate myself as a Christian, as a faith-based person? Well, a simple way to say that the way I practice my faith is it's about love and compassion versus power and control. I strongly believe in the separation of church and state. Freedom of religion is important to me, but even more important than that, the freedom of not to have a religion, the freedom of choice is very important to me, and I want to sustain that in this country. I do not want to live in a theocracy. I want to live in a diverse democracy. I don't want to live in a white democracy. I want one that includes everybody in that tent, that makes room for everybody, and that's important to me. And my faith embraces love, kindness, inclusiveness, compassion and respect for all people, people of all faiths and people of none. And it's all about attraction rather than promotion. There's no proselytizing in my faith. And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about justice. I was nervous about coming to talk about this, and I thought, what's bothering you, Marcy? What was really bothering me is that this movement, white Christian nationalism, has been going on for 50 or 60 years. And this is a general statement, but the mainstream Christian churches have been silent. They've been silent too long. I've been silent for too long. So I believe in what's my part? My part is getting out and becoming what I want to see. And so I'm coming out and I'm calling out Christian nationalism as a Christian that doesn't believe in that tenet. And I thought that was really important to share with you all. It's important to me. So I did want to share with you a little bit about my faith. Currently, I belong to an Episcopal church here in town. We're a diverse congregation. We support the LGBTQIA plus community. We marry gay couples in our church. We're one of the few Episcopal churches that will do that. We participate in the Gay Pride Parade each year. That's a lot of fun. And about a year and a half ago, we hosted a fundraiser. It was called Drag Me to Church. It was a drag show. It was in partnership with the Montrose Center. That was a whole lot of fun. So that's kind of a little bit about what we are. We are recently a reproductive freedom congregation. I was integral in getting that designation. I worked with Texas Freedom Network. And what that designation means is that we trust women or pregnant people's decisions when it comes to their own bodily autonomy. There's no shame. You're welcome at our church to come there. And that's important to me because when I was 22, I had an unplanned pregnancy. I was brought up Catholic, and I knew that I would be excommunicated if I told anybody about it. So I left the Catholic Church, and I never went back. So I had a kind of a rocky road with, the Catholic religion in particular. I never went back. But we support ending gun violence. We have a refugee ministry. To just go a little bit about, that's what my faith looks like today. I chose a church that represents my values. So I'm not going to go over a lot there's some duplication here. Will went through a lot of things. It was very helpful. I'm going to just kind of pick out the things that kind of are more like religious oriented. For example, like the black and white view of the world. And Christian nationalism excludes people who are different. And that's not what I was taught in my Christian religion. You're very inclusive. And also, the last statement there, the Christian nationalism is an idolatry of white supremacist national ideology that uses the Christian religion as its justification. It's hijacked my faith. It's a heteropatriarchal society structure. There's only two sexes according to that belief system. Marriage between a male and a female, cisgender female. The man is the head of the household, women bear children, and mother. And that's how that works there in that belief system. I don't believe that at all. And the key issue for me here is the ideology, the idolatry, which is the worship of something or something other than God as though it were God. I'm sure many of you remember when President Trump took the Bible upside down and stood in front of that Episcopal church. That no longer was a sacred text. He was using it as a weapon to further his agenda. That's idolatry, and I took exception to that, and many Christians did. That's using it as a weapon. That's not what the Bible is meant to be used for. There's a lot on this slide, so I'm just going to pick out a couple items. Will did a good job of explaining this already, but it's based on Anglo-Saxon exceptionalism, that there's a certain group of Christians with a specific church-based institutions that they turn toward the state and the government to support those structures. And it revolves around white supremacy, which has been mentioned, to advance and maintain the interests and opportunities of the power of white people, mainly maintaining the status quo. And it blurs the difference between being a good American and being a good Christian. It puts faith in the state, not in the gospel. I don't worship the state of Texas. I don't worship Greg Abbott. I worship, the gospel. That's what I worship. A lot of this has already been mentioned, but, the abortion bans, that's based on the religious rights belief that life begins at conception. And to just expand upon that, women and pregnant people aren't getting the care they need. People are almost dying or are dying and not being cared for. Well, that's not very loving and compassionate at all. And I take that as an exception. That's not a very Christian way to treat people, or that doesn't demonstrate love at all. And the 10 Commandments have already been mentioned. And I show as a Christian, I don't want 10 Commandments in the schools, because that's showing partiality, particular religion. It is not culturally competent. Not everyone's Christian. Not everyone has a faith. There could be Buddhist, there could be Muslim, a variety of people attending public schools. They don't belong in public schools, in my opinion. It needs to stay separate in that person's faith, whatever that is. And there's so many different versions of that from Bibles. There's like over 2,000, right? Maybe even more versions of Christian religions. And this is advocating for one particular type of religion. I even looked at not the Texas 10 Commandments, but the one that they passed for Louisiana. It had like 12 different things on there. I was like very confused when I read them. I found it very confusing. And to add insult to injury, there's a eugenics conference going on in March in this state, which I find very disturbing. So there is nothing Christian about Christian nationalism. I'm going to quote my rector of my church, because she's been very supportive in the work I do. She said, Christ's whole message was about love and mercy and trust and dignity, not control and condemnation and hate and legal power. And I really like what she said. That was quoted from an article we did, because the Bitter Southerner did an article on our reproductive freedom congregation. And I just really liked how they quoted her on that. It takes one person to start a movement, but it takes many others to be involved in that. So what can I do to intervene? What I tell my Christian friends is, maintain that loving landscape. Maintain the sanctity of separation of church and state. I discuss with all my Christian friends, talk to people about what Christian nationalism is. If they don't know what it is, I'll talk to them about it. And I do want to make a statement about Christian persecution. I'm hearing more and more about it, and it's, in general, a lot of the people who are on the extreme right, Christian and Christian nationalists, will say they're being persecuted. It's not Christian persecution, and I got this statement from Andrea Watkins. She's a Substack writer for such a time as this. And, it's not Christian persecution to call out a religious extremism. It's not persecution to say my faith looks different than yours, or to point out how a person's life and experiences differ from biblical tenets. Nor is it persecution to say we disagree with another person's faith. That's freedom of speech, and that's what we all deserve. And with that, I'm going to share with you other ways that you can get involved, governmental ways to get involved, and I'll pass that on to Wil.
Yeah, so this whole morning is like Christian nationalism. It really sucks. Like this is really bad stuff. But it's a lot of bad juju. But the good things are what you can do is what Marcy just started to explain. I kind of boil it down to two things. One, having those conversations with people, because most people don't know how much Christian nationalism sucks. It's insidious, in the shadows, like I said. So it takes these conversations at dinner tables, at restaurants, at bars, wherever you are. most people out there don't know this stuff, so that's why we're here to let you know what it is, so that you can say this is Christian nationalism, and Christian nationalism is not Christianity, and most people out there are Christians. Marcy's doing her part. She's having these conversations, and she's getting she can speak in spaces that I cannot, but we all hopefully are better armed to have these conversations out there, because that's what it takes to remove that patina of goodness, that myth of morality that Christian nationalism has. Our purpose, our job is to, again, remove that myth out there. Once that's removed, passing these odious bills, doing this harm is more difficult for these people. The second thing to do is, in my opinion, is in the political sphere. We have 501c3 constraints here. I'm not going to get into specific electioneering, but generally, making your voice heard out there in the political realm is really important. These elected officials, they make all the decisions, all these bills, this book bans, everything, pretty much everything we've been talking about, kind of starts at the political level. Again, whether it's school boards, the governor, and everything in between. So make your voice heard in that realm. Start with making a list of who represents you. At the Texas legislature, where all the areas that you can, but the Texas legislature, your Texas representative, and your Texas senator, those are going to be the two more important ones. Look it up, write it down, pin it up, or put it in your phone, because that's where you're going to be calling and voicing your opposition to anything that has to do with Christian nationalism. I've been kind of doing some work in this realm, so if you want to contact me outside of Oasis, I am more than happy to explain that to you. But I think those two things are going to be vital, having these conversations and making your voice heard in the political sphere. That's how we remove that patina of goodness from Christian nationalism. And Marcy said it terrifically. Grassroots movements is where it's at. That's how we change things. And we are all blades of grass in this grassroots movement. So don't think, oh, I'm not doing what they're doing, I'm not doing enough. If you just make one call, if you just have one conversation, you're that blade of grass. You are doing something, and you are helping to remove this scourge that is Christian nationalism. So to summarize, distillation of what we're talking about, Christian nationalism is a merging of politics and religion. This isn't faith, but a political ideology. This is a political movement to attain power with them on top and maintain that hierarchy that we talked about. The Constitution gets in the way of this. Laws get in the way of this. A pluralistic society gets in the way of this. Christian nationalism is a tool to help them shatter those norms that allow for a pluralistic society like ours to have a chance, to wreck those norms that allow for true religious freedom for all religions or none. The separation of church and state, codified into law, was an American original. Without it, we slide into theocracy and all of the suffering that comes with that, and then we cease to be America. That, my friends, is why we fight alongside of y'all. And that is why we're here to implore you to protect that separation. Our democracy and our well-being absolutely depends on it. Thank you all for listening. We are going to have a short coffee break. Oh yeah, we got 10 minutes. Mix and mingle, get some coffee, and then we're going to have a robust Q&A. We're both going to be up here because we want it. This is the good stuff. We want these Qs, and we'll give you all the A's. So come back. I'm really excited about this part. See you in 10 minutes.
Welcome back, everybody.
Look who's come.
There are lots of great conversations. It's awesome. That's actually one of the reasons why second and fourth Sundays we do bring your own lunch here. Do I have that? No, I don't have that. While everyone's getting situated, I also want everyone to take a look at the bulletin that's out there. We've got a lot of great events coming up. I think we have a bar night coming up, like a lunch meetup during the week. So if you're available during the week for lunch, you should join and check that out. We would normally have a musician up here, but I don't think y'all want to hear me sing. All right, we'll go ahead and get started with Q&A. So we'll welcome our speakers back up here. And if you have a question, raise your hand and wait for the microphone. That way people online can hear you and that everyone else in the room can hear you as well.
Yeah, hi. Could you speak a little more about the eugenics talk that's coming up in March that you had mentioned? When specifically, where, who? I think some of us would like to be there to voice a counterpoint.
Hi, yeah, it's an article from The Guardian, and it's a natalist conference featuring speakers including self-described eugenics and promoters of race science, including the man behind the pseudonyms of race science influencer and the founder of a startup offering IQ screening for IVF embryos, et cetera. And it's being held at a hotel and conference venue operated by the Public University of Texas in Austin. Let me scroll down. It's an article I'm looking at. You know, I'd have to, let's see, and of course, it's emerged as a prominent supporter of pro-natalist positions by the tech billionaire Elon Musk. It talks about what it is. It doesn't say, the conference scheduled for the 28th and 29th of March. It's being organized by Kevin Dolan, who the Guardian identified in 2021 as a person behind a Twitter account that was the prominent in the far-right DesNat movement. I'm not sure what that is, but there's a whole article on it, and certainly I can, there's a ticketing page, and when I clicked on it, it cost $1,000 to get a ticket. So it's only, you know, I guess the wealthy, you know, eugenics people that could go, I guess, so. Yeah, and so, yeah, I wasn't prepared to summarize the whole, you know, article, but it's there, but you can find it, and anyone who wants the link, I'd be more than happy to email that to you.
So eugenics makes a hierarchy. It's gross. How do you make it palatable? You wrap it in Christian nationalism. That's one tool.
How do you impress upon someone who is underinformed or otherwise disengaged the negative impacts that Christian nationalism would have on their own life? In other words, how do you explain FAFO to someone around the concept of Christian nationalism, to someone who maybe hasn't even heard of it?
That's tough. Like, how do you talk to people that don't agree with you? We know that direct confrontation doesn't work.
But maybe not even agree. Maybe just like they do not know what it is. Like they're underinformed or just wholly.
Right. So if they're underinformed, they really don't have a view. Yeah, you could just be gentle about it. Gently let them know how this stuff is going to affect their lives. But just as effective, you can. If you have a good relationship with that person, you can tell them how it's going to affect your life, and it kind of humanizes and brings some empathy into the equation, and just leave it there. Don't just say it. Be very genuine about it. Good eye contact, and then move on, and just know that you may not get a response right then, but the seed is planted.
Hi. Is this on? Yes. Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, I mean, sorry, I'm a historian. I study the Nazis, amongst other things. And they were all opposed to abortion unless it was you were Jewish, in which case abortion, you would be forced to have an abortion, right? So I guess my question is, eugenics and anti-abortion don't actually go together? if you're serious race scientists, you really want the wrong people not to have babies, as opposed to, so I'm just wondering, do they actually deal with that inconsistency in that set of ideas? Do they have any idea what the history of this movement had?
Are you referring to the eugenics
Yeah,
movement?
no, the Christian nationalists who say that they're also eugenicists. I'm wondering how this goes together.
Well, yeah, my main focus on what I do for activism is reproductive justice oriented things.
Okay.
And really, in a lot of our seminars that we have, Zoom meetings with Planned Parenthood, it's talked about that, abortion bans are white supremacist. It comes from the white supremacy ideology. And there seems to be, from my point of view, this is my own personal view, that there's a foolishness thinking if you have abortion bans, you're going to make more white babies.
Oh.
Which actually, that's not the case, because, it's going to affect the marginalized populations the most, and that's not going to create more white babies. So I really can't.
So there's no real logic to it at all.
Yeah, it doesn't really have if you try to look at a root cause analysis or try to look at it logistically like you are, it's not going to have it's not going to make sense.
Straight up racism. Okay.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more, if you are okay with that, about your own experience with reproductive issues. You mentioned, briefly alluded, I don't know if you're comfortable, but I was curious if you had more to say.
Yeah, I am. I've told my abortion story to Al Green and other people when I went to D.C. With another group of Planned Parenthood people. So I've told my abortion story a lot. I just know for myself, when I was 22, it was an unintended pregnancy, and I was just out of college. I knew I didn't want to have a potential child at the time. We don't know if the pregnancy always goes through, right? I just knew I had very traditional Italian and Ukrainian parents that were Catholic. I knew where the Catholic Church stood on it, and I had a career that I needed to do. That wasn't going to work for me. And so I did what was best for me, my self-care. But it came down, it was like a split-second decision. I thought, wow, if I were to go through the pregnancy, I would be labeled, there's no good decision, right? I would be labeled oh wow, she's a single mother, and I'd be ostracized that way. If I gave the child, the pregnancy went all the way through and I gave the child up for adoption, I'd be like, oh, you're that woman that gave up her baby. And if I had an abortion, according to the Catholic Church, that's what I was brought up with, well, you'd be a baby killer. So I said, Marcy, what's best for you? I said, an abortion. And I called up Planned Parenthood, because I lived up in Connecticut at the time. They called me in, and I set up an appointment the same day. Set an appointment for the abortion, went in and had it at that moment. No waiting periods, no ultrasounds, nothing. And my insurance, this is back in 1983, 84, insurance paid for 50% of it. And that's my hope, to have it come back to that way. So I hope that answered your questions a little bit about what that's like.
Real quick, Marcy downplays how much of a badass she is. In the reproductive justice world, reproductive rights, I can't even put it into words. She is doing so much great work here locally and at the state levels, national levels, so much respect to Marcy.
Can you each talk a little bit about your positions on the school vouchers and what people might be able to do now, since this is kind of a time when if people are worried about that, they can make calls, make noise, just talk a little bit about how that relates to the separation of church and state?
Excellent question. So the school vouchers, which are going through the legislative session as we speak, it's been moving ahead. They tried 2 years ago. They tried super hard. They called all these special sessions to get it passed, and they just couldn't do it. They being one political party that wants this. They failed, and so now, and they did a bunch of stuff between 2 years ago and now to have more of a chance of success. So this voucher bill, some people will call it a scam. If they do pass it, it's going to basically divert money from the public education system in Texas to that parents and parental choice. They can now use it for private schools and charter schools, kind of as they wish. So it's going to funnel money away from public education. It's a sabotage of the public school system in Texas, and it's going to divert money to schools that 71% of them have a religious tint to them. So us as taxpayers, this is the government funneling money from a public fund, which is us paying taxes, to religious schools. And absolutely unconstitutional. That's kind of where the Christian nationalism layer is. It's favoring Christianity above everything else. And when I say 70% of where the money is going to go is religious, most of that's Christian, of the Christian variety.
And also, you can find out who represents me, meaning in the Texas legislature. And you can send them a letter, you can email them and tell them what you expect of them and what your needs are. You can do that as well. And I did see a hand way back there in the back.
One quick important point. As a constituent, whoever your representative is, or the senator, state senator, as a constituent, your voice has weight more than you know. So even if they are opposed to your viewpoint, your opinion is marked, it is noted, it is officially registered. So it is worth it to call whoever your state senator is and your state representative to tell them you oppose this. Anything we're talking about today and in the future.
Before we get to our next question, I wanted to add there's an app called Five Calls that I use personally, and it gives you it tells you who to call, like who your reps are, and gives you like a script that I have found particularly helpful because I'm a very awkward person. So that's another way to kind of make sure you know who to call and what to say and what to call about.
And if and when you do call or email, lead with "I'm a constituent." I'm a constituent. That gets their ears perked up and they pay attention to you because you are a VIP. I am a constituent.
Yeah, and the Episcopalian Church has always been kind of out there, kind of pretty progressive. Has there been any attempt in the mainstream Christian churches to kind of push back against this, or do they see it as advantageous to them?
That's a great question. With regard to that, I'll just speak about my Episcopal church, because that's the one I'm involved in. They came out with a book, The Crisis of Christian Nationalism. They wrote a book. It was really a paper done by, let me cheat and look at my little paperwork here. Oh, that's your stuff. Oh, hold on. They did put, there was the House of Bishop Ethics Committee, and they did put a book together called The Crisis of Christian Nationalism. I'm grateful they did that. It was published. It cost $25. It was basically 13-page paper, which I was disappointed in. They had a presentation on it, and when we asked advocacy type questions, like what's the plan, like from the big church filtering down to the smaller or the congregations, they didn't answer those questions. And I could tell the priests that were on the chat were getting frustrated. And they finally closed the chat down because we were having our own little sidebar going, well, how come they're not answering our questions? You know, you could tell the questions were getting more they were getting frustrated, you know, as was I. Matter of fact, after that meeting, I had to email Will this long, big thing because I was all stressed about it. And I'm like, they don't have a plan. Even one of the priests said, it doesn't sound like you have a plan, and there's a 3-alarm fire going on. You know, they said they'd follow up with us. They hadn't. And so Will really inspired me. He said, well, you know what, Marcy, if they're not going to do something, we're going to have to do it ourselves. And I said, you're right. So I'm not going to wait for the Episcopal Church to come out with a big plan or put it under their justice plans that they did for the LGBTQIA community or for the refugee ministry. Since they don't have any plan, formal plan that I'm not aware of as a congregant, then I'm going to do what I'm doing right now. Maybe what you didn't want to hear, but I'm just telling you the truth from what I know.
I was just curious for just recommendations on how to get involved in the fight for reproductive rights, like things we can do in our community or like groups we can join, or I guess, you know, other than calling our reps, like what are other things that we can do to like raise awareness and get more involved? And
Yeah, there's a couple things that you can do. There's Planned Parenthood Gulf Coast location. They have volunteer opportunities. And then if you really want to get involved in, there's Planned Parenthood Federation of America. And of course, they have the Federation of America. Just go on their website and sign up and say, I want more information, or I want to get involved. You'll probably start getting solicited by different Zoom meetings that they're having. I participate on a national level, but it's through Zoom meetings and basically making people aware. For example, you help people write their abortion story. You don't even have to have an abortion story. Basically, it's your reproductive rights story, and you can find. And it's funny. It's kind of happens organically. I wrote my story. Then before I knew it, they had a big meeting out in D.C. All of us got invited, and then we are talking to representatives in the House, you know, in D.C. And then you find out there is actually, I think I could talk to you after this. You can sign up for Lobby Day that they're having in March, where everyone goes up to Austin and they put you all in groups and kind of give you a little bit of training, and then you go talk to the local representatives about reproductive rights. So that's kind of a good way to get your foot in the door with something like that. Even any of the reproductive agencies that help support abortion, you know, and you can get involved in that. But Planned Parenthood is a real good one to help you get involved and get your foot in the door. But that's, before I knew it, I started doing interviews and stuff like that, and I didn't even plan that. But it kind of comes when it comes. So I hope that helps you. But see me afterwards. I can give you some information, more detailed information.
Hi. So one of the arguments I hear for the charter school stuff is that the money isn't being taken out of the public school funds. I see that's a common argument from the other side. I'm just trying to understand what's y'all's take of that argument from the other side.
Try not to say bad words. Don't believe pretty much anything you hear from the proponents of the voucher scam bill. Did I say scam? There was so many lies before when they said, oh, we have the votes. Oh, we just have special sessions. We have the votes. They're saying the same thing now. We have the votes. It's inevitable that the voucher bill is going to pass. It's not inevitable. Yes, they have a higher chance, but it's not inevitable. So the pushback is not wasted time on the voucher bill. I don't know. I can't tell you the specifics of how the bill reads, but the argument that they're not taking funds out of the public schools is ridiculous. It's bleeding the public schools to put that money somewhere else. And it's the sabotage of the public school system has been a priority of theirs since Brown versus Board of Education in the 1950s. And they're just now kind of getting some momentum because of the landscape is just ripe for that.
Yes, and I just wanted to add to that my understanding is, you know, in the public schools, each child has kind of a fund attached, and when that child moves out of the public school into a private school, that money follows the kid. And then it does go through the parents, which is how they're trying to dodge this, as being like, oh no, we're just doing this for parental choice. But the bottom line is that money is following the kid, and it's also more money. They've actually decided to devote more money for a child using a voucher than the children in the public schools. So these are really important things to kind of, you know, percolate down and be able to kind of use as your arguments with people, because I think many people, here's another one, sorry. I'm really, this is kind of a thing. But another one is they don't do well. You know, these kids that have moved from public school to private school, there's a pretty large body of evidence now showing that their performance actually goes down, and that performance deficit, so to speak, lasts for at least the 5 years that they have been looking at this. So there's just a lot of misinformation out there, and I think it is important, kind of back to the Christian nationalist thing, that this is about power and control. They want to privatize our school systems. That's really the goal, is to privatize our school systems, and it's really it's a problem. I mean, I can't imagine a world without private schools. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Great question. Thanks, Steve.
So for the gentleman, if you want to know what happens to a state where they change the law, research what happened in Arizona with their public school system. So I'll leave that one up to you. The second one is I recently watched a documentary on YouTube called Against All Enemies. And this is about what's happening locally with the fascist movement. And the gentleman that made this documentary was the one that infiltrated the white supremacist group and exposed them, and then was able to sue them later for what they were doing. His name is Christopher Goldsmith. And he's with he's formed an organization called Veterans Fighting Fascism. And what he says is it is no longer going to be viable to count on anybody else but ourselves to defend ourselves and our values. And he has joined forces with Common Defense Organization. These are all veterans. To try to fight the fascists. However, he has a list of books on his website that is the Anti-Fascist Book Club, so that people in communities and between themselves can learn how to defend themselves and what to do. And if you are willing to do this, I will buy the books for the community so that people can start educating themselves.
Isn't there a bill that's going through it's whatever, in the works, that says something about the amounts allocated for the voucher versus the student in public school? And could you tell us about that?
I don't know where that specific bill is or what the number is. I'll have to get back with you on that one. I do have a list of bills that I'm following. That's not on my list, but I do know that that is in the mix. So I don't have that information for you. But another group that exists in Houston does educate people on bills that are bad and good and what to do about them. So you'll see it on that website as well, or social medias.
Time for just one last question.
Mm-hmm. So my question is about kind of engaging the free church. Is that something that your church is doing, and what inroads have you been able to make? Is there, or is it kind of like stonewalled? I'm just curious if there's been kind of any interest from kind of the broader church.
Are you talking about, did you say the word was preachers?
Like evangelical free, just like engaging, because I know like many of the organizations, like many of the denominations might see these bills as beneficial, but I'm just curious if you've been able to connect with like evangelical free or just like Baptist churches that are sympathetic to the cause, even if they don't maybe agree with you on specific policies.
I'll just answer the church part, and I'll let Wil. I just know it's been disappointing on my part. I wanted to host Bad Faith at my church, my progressive church, and that wasn't going to happen. I was told I got a southern no. I'm from the Northeast. It was like, well, we have a lot of things going on with all the holidays coming up and stuff. That's pretty hard to kind of push it. But I'm getting that kind of answer. Even a friend of mine, her church is in another Episcopal church, and I said, listen, my husband will pay pay for, like, if we don't have 250 people, we'll pay the $300 for the minimum fee to have it. They politely said no as well. So that was disappointing. It's frustrating for me as a Christian. And my experience has been, even when I attended a Unitarian, I don't know how I got this link. I think it was from one of my friends. Oh, that is my thing. Sorry about that, guys. Let me stop that. One of my friends in church who had a contact about the Unitarian were like all the different heads of the Unitarian churches were getting together to have like a Zoom meeting to say we don't agree and make their statements against Christian nationalism. There wasn't a plan there either, which I found unsettling. And so, yeah, and so I'm at this crossroads when it comes to my Christian faith. It's like, well, somebody's got to do something. So I'm like, okay, Marcy, it's you. I'm going to start it. And just call people out and say, God, y'all need to get involved, do something. So that's my part of it. I'll let you continue.
You said the cause. What do you mean by the cause? Got it. So are faith groups, faith churches addressing the problem of Christian nationalism? Yeah. You're not going to find evangelicals addressing this problem. They are the problem. And within the Christian world, they're broken up into many different factions and churches. Yeah, evangelicals are the problem. But I have been absolutely surprised and just over the moon with meeting individual Christians and Christian organizations, interfaith organizations, that not only, and they're repulsed by Christian nationalism, and they not only say it online and say they're against it, but they actually do the work on the ground like Marcy and I are doing. They do it better than our side does a lot of times. So they not only think it, but they do it. And Baptist Joint Committee, Americans United is more, that's not interfaith. I try to drag him into that realm. Christians Against Christian Nationalism, which is a project of the Baptist Joint Committee, BJC, I would look that up. And I'm forgetting Interfaith Alliance, doing wonderful work at all levels to push back on Christian nationalism. Texas Freedom Network here in this state, obviously. Texas Impact is doing some good work as well. So they are out there, and I've been absolutely impressed with the fact that they exist and the work that they're doing. And I'm excited. And we need the coalition. We need to join what they're doing because, and they are 100% like, heck yeah, where have you been? Come to the table. So I'm trying to get these coalitions formed more and more. That's kind of a side project I'm having, but yeah, there are lights out there. There are good things out there happening.
Yes. Oh, it's not my slide, so I'd have to have Will show that one. The definition, she wanted to see the definition of Christian, the one that you had.
Yeah. I'm going to post the definitions on the Facebook page and wherever I can on the social medias. I'm going to go through this rigmarole about getting, I don't think it's fired up, so the definitions, which again, very important, I spent a lot of time on that. I'm going to post them as well as some other relevant slides that have to do with this. On the Houston Oasis public Facebook page, yeah. And whatever other social medias that I can efficiently post those to.
Thank y'all so much. Thanks. Thank y'all. The work you're doing is so important. And Will, you did mention like you're getting people involved, and you said that there was a local organization that's doing some stuff.
So that's my baby, Secular Houston. I saw at least one T-shirt here, but I formed Secular Houston to have a platform from which to do secular political activism, and we teach people how to talk to their representatives, keep them educated on what's important, really through the separation of church and state prism. And it has nothing to do with Houston Oasis. Houston Oasis is a 501c3, can't do electioneering. This is absolutely separate, but you're going to find a lot of people from Houston Oasis, from Houston Atheist, from different groups in the secular Houston. So we're on all the social medias. It's not like a membership thing, but if you look at us up on any social media, Facebook is the most practical one because I can post more stuff, but we try to post in all the social medias. Secular Houston. And we have a website, secularhouston.org. Does Secular Houston have a list of laws? I do have a list of bills on this thing that is on our radar, both good and bad. I'm going to post those very soon. I've been getting ready for this talk, so I couldn't do it, but I'm going to post them very soon about with the numbers and then what you can do about it. It'll all be on the post. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Thank y'all for being here. We really appreciate it. Yes, please. All right, so before we break down, put our chairs away and get the tables out, or I guess get the tables out and move the chairs around for lunch, because we will be having lunch in here. I believe we have some pizza. A lot of times people bring a ton of food to share, so please stick around, have some conversations, some food. And like I said, we do this every second and fourth Sunday. Bring your own lunch. I am going to bring up Richard Andrews, our former treasurer of the board, to a spiel is what you told me.
So I was going to give these 3 wall-mounted shelves to put all your anti-Christian nationalism books up and stuff like that. I was going to give them away for free, but instead I'd like to start a little bidding war in case I have 3 just like this with all the hardware. You can mount them up right now in your home, and so the first person to donate, let's say $2 today to Oasis, have them, but I want to start a little bit of a bidding war, so maybe we can get up to 5 or 10 or who knows. If you were going to give anyway, this is a good time to take advantage of it.
Thank you so much, Richard. All right, so please join us next week. We're going to have Kelly Rhodes talking about Camp Quest and Jamie Lawson, chair of the Community Outreach Committee for the Houston Climate Movement. And like I said, check the bulletin. We've got a lot of great upcoming events, including volunteering at the Houston Food Bank and Blues Night coming up later this month. All right, so thank you and have a great week.
Life became the paradox, the bear, the rouge and noir, and the stretch of road running to hell.